What's up, you guys? Chet Guthrie, the Dream Poet here, coming to you all from a roadway here on the outskirts of Charleston, Tennessee. Now, why we are here on the outskirts of Charleston? Well, you guys, if anybody doesn't know, Charleston, Tennessee played a major role in the Indian Removal Act of the 1830s. This place had the largest encampment of Cherokee people who waited to be put on barges like cattle and taken to Oklahoma. But there is another side to this city's history. Something that plays part in the Civil War from 1861 to 1864. A major series of encampments, battles, that makes this little town in the middle of nowhere perhaps as significant as Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and even Virginia. So you guys, we are going to stop at what is left of these buildings, and we are going to explore the story of a city under siege, occupied by both the Confederacy and the Union in the days of the American Civil War. So without further ado, you guys, let's do this. Let's anchor down. Our first location takes us to the train tracks. You see, the railroad, these very tracks, it was because of these rails that made Charleston, Tennessee such a point of interest during the Civil War. Tennessee, this very state, that is my home state, there were more Civil War battles fought in this state than any other state in the Union and the Confederacy. In fact, the Union considered Tennessee to be the gateway into the South. A state, imagine, protected by mountains, protected by rivers, impenetrable, yes. The only way that the Union figured they could capture Tennessee was by taking the railroads. And that leads us to the bridge that we'll be coming up to very shortly. And it brings us to this very bridge in front of us. This bridge in front of me, while it may look new, actually this bridge is about 150 years old, if not older. You see, if you look at the foundation, the rock foundation, that is the original bridge. The iron trestle that runs up on top of it, or trestles I should say, the iron foundation, that wasn't built till sometime later. And that is because this bridge behind us, it has been burned to the ground twice. Yes, twice during the Civil War. They were known as bridge burners, conspirators in the state of Tennessee that wanted to make sure that the Confederacy did not succeed. You see, in Bradley County, the county that we are in right now, 2/3 of the county voted against secession in 1861. This caused a major uproar within all the other counties within the state of Tennessee. You see, The rest of the state of Tennessee wanted to secede from the Union. East Tennessee, they did not. And it came to a point that the two communities, the two sides of Tennessee, almost split. And there is a very fun fact about the bridge burners of the Civil War and my family history. My great-great-great-grandfather, Daniel Truitt, was a bridge burner. Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, my great-great-great-grandfather died in a prison camp near the end of the Civil War. Or it may have been my great-great-great-great-grandfather, Levi Truitt. Levi Truitt, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, he was the first judge of Bradley County. So I thought that was interesting, but now we are going to stop at our next location. And that is the Henegar House. Down this little stretch of near dirt road is perhaps one of the most important buildings in the entire state of Tennessee, and perhaps the entire Civil War. This is the Henegar House. Now, to start off the importance of this brick building, this is the last standing brick structure, oldest brick structure in the entire city of Cleveland and the entire state of Tennessee. You see, initially, the Henegar House is constructed in the 1840s by Henry Henegar and his wife, Margaret Henegar. Henry Henegar, he was the secretary of Chief John Ross just before the removal of the Cherokee Nation. When the Cherokee removal happened, not long after, he and Margaret moved back to the state of Tennessee, and they continued their business once more. He likes talking a little bit. I like the ponies in the foreground. Now, when the Civil War will break out, Henry Henegar will leave the house. His wife, Margaret Henegar, she will stand guard and watch the building. And during the Civil War, the Henegar House will be the meeting place, the center of communications here in Charleston, Tennessee, for all the Union soldiers here and Confederate soldiers here. Both sides will have centers of communication in this house. The first will be General Sherman. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of General Sherman and his march to the sea. A Union general heck-bent on coming down from the north and burning down everything in his path. Now, there is actually an interesting story about General Sherman we will talk about later on in this vlog. He and another fellow Union general of his, this will be their command post. This is where they will stand guard and watch before moving north to Knoxville in November of 1863. Those two Confederate generals will be Simon Wright and Simon Buckner. But let's go to a story that involves Margaret Henegar and William Sherman. You see, somewhere behind this house is where General Sherman and Margaret Henegar will have a conversation. And this conversation will be that General Sherman will tell Margaret Henegar to leave the South for her own safety. That is when General Sherman will politely tell her that when he is done coming through the South, there will be nothing left. No sparrows, no nothing. And perhaps the best piece of history is that Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of War will even meet in the halls of this house to discuss the future of the war. Now later on, fast forward a few hundred years, businessman Alan Jones will have a painting commissioned of what it was like the day General Sherman and his men left Charleston, Tennessee, the city under siege. Okay guys, the owner of this house just told me, but this red dog right here that's standing, oh, hello puppy, want to sniff me? Oh, this puppy right here was in the painting that Alan Jones had commissioned. So yes, this friendly dog, he is extra famous. He is in that painting. He is a sweet, sweet, sweet puppy. Yes, he is. All right, you guys, I got one more location for you guys. This is the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Now, what might seem as a normal church, this church plays a very important role in General Sherman and his march to the sea. You see, when General Sherman and his men camped out here in Charleston, Tennessee, this church right here was a makeshift hospital. This is where his men were taken care of, the sick, the poor of health. This is where they were brought. And quite honestly, some people may have passed on in this church. And I'm pretty sure y'all can hear it, but there is a train coming by. Again, very reminiscent from the days of the Civil War and what this little town in East Tennessee went through. And one thing to note about this church is you can clearly see that these seals right here are chipped and torn apart. And you wonder, why is it like that? Is the city of Charleston simply not capable of replacing the old wood? No. This is another piece of historical significance. You see, the men who were hospitalized in this church, they would tie up their horses here. Their horses up to this spot. And these horses, while they would wait in sheer boredom, they would chew on the window seals, waiting for their master to recover. A story from the past, and it's very vocal. Just check out the original glass. That is all original. And I love its architecture. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this was constructed in 1860, just 1 year prior to the United States Civil War. So where I'm walking right now, Union and Confederate soldiers once stood where I stand now. And perhaps the Cherokee, well no, I know the Cherokee for a fact, stood here. This land tells a story. And one thing I want to note about the Cumberland Presbyterian Church is it has, or illustrations, I guess you would say, paintings of St. Matthew St. Mark, St. Luke, and St. John. And the wood is all original. Well, I wouldn't say all original, but all original in most places. Just check out that sunset. And as we walk, you guys, there is one more story I want to tell you all. One that if someone found it, they would make a pretty penny and probably add a missing piece to the Civil War, to the puzzle piece that was perhaps one of the greatest disagreements in American history. By the way, if you all want to know more about the train bridge, this kind of talks about talk about the odds of that happening. But if you want to learn more, in November 8th of 1861, Union and Confederate forces would burn this bridge to the ground. Both sides in a power struggle to have control over East Tennessee. Now, William T. Sherman later will spend the evening, November 30th, and later on he will receive orders from Ulysses S. Grant to take command during the siege of Knoxville. So, if you want to know more, this talks about it. This last story leads us to the Little Chatta Creek, or if you ask some locals, the Shady or Little Shady Creek. Now, when General Sherman and his troops were heading south to Chattanooga to make their way and burn the city to the ground, along the way they had a cannon, other artifacts that were much too heavy. Along the journey, the troops, some of them, fell into the Little Shady Creek. Forced to cut ties, General Sherman made the command to cut a very heavy cannon, leaving it there in the Little Shady Creek. Present day, no one has ever found this cannon. But along the Little Shady Creek, people have found cannonballs. They have found swords. Actually, there is one story of this where a teenager in the 1970s will pull up a Union soldier's saber while fishing. So you guys, if y'all happen to be fishing along the Little Shady Creek, or magnet fishing, or even metal detecting, if you get a ping, if something latches onto your magnet, if something catches onto your fishing rod and you don't know what it is, you keep reeling, you keep pulling, you keep getting those pings until finally you dig up or pull up a cannon. A cannon from the Civil War, a lost cannon that would really do well in a preserved location in a museum. So you guys, this is going to be my vlog for the day. Remember, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Always means a lot. Goes to show that y'all care and y'all want to see more content of mine. So, I love you all very much. Vlog over.